In the red for the benchmark indices, the mid-cap index has slipped close to about 50 odd points. Let's shift focus now to the agri space. The interim budget gave a much-needed relief to the distressed agri sector, with a slew of relief measures being announced for the farmers. To discuss all this, we now have Manisha Gupta, and joining her is Purvi Mehta Bhatt, the Senior Advisor and Head of Agriculture for South Asia at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Manisha, over to you.
Well, thank you so much for that. Well, as you rightly said, yes, the farmers that 6,000, of course, has derived or has led to a lot of conversation. And then there is yet another criticism on whether there has been enough dialogue done with the farmers themselves as we are devising schemes for them. And then, of course, the consultation, which isn't seen very adequate with the states as well. So we will, of course, discuss all of that. Purvi, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, in your sense, does the budget address the farmers' near-term, longer-term concerns? What is your sense? What is your first reading with the whole interim budget?
Yeah, hi, Manisha. I think in many sense it does. You spoke about the short-term and the longer-term. I think the farmers basically are into agriculture because they are looking at agriculture as the only or a very important source of their livelihood. And therefore, the thrust on income or the thrust on sectors that would bring in income, which is the major shift from production and productivity only to a very market-ledness in the budget, I think in an interim and in a long term definitely helps the farmer, and they look forward to it. If you look at the last several months, the consumer food price index, Manisha, has gone down by minus 2.61%, right? Which means the consumer essentially has perhaps paid less price for the essential food commodities. But that also has implications on the farmer's price realization capacity. And therefore, this direct income support of 6,000 rupees to smallholder farmers is in an interim, or at least in a short term, a good step forward.
Sure. Purvi, also comment on the fact that while, of course, we are looking at the income, direct income transfer to farmers, but there always is this question about whether there is enough data, and if there is enough data, is it accurate? Is it enough to support policy decisions, really?
So that's interesting you asked that, Manisha, because, interestingly, in the history of the country, after such large number of years, often a lot of our knowledge and our of agriculture decisions often are based on maybe 5 to 10 commodities, which can be rice, wheat, sugarcane, cotton, milk, and so forth. With diversified commodities like fisheries coming into picture, horticulture, which is growing at the rate of about 8% in the country, and so forth, there is a substantial amount of data in those essential commodities that I spoke about, perhaps. But there is a key gap in the data that we have in some sense the newer commodities, which is actually driving the market and driving the farming sector. So data availability is one thing, Manisha, but I think what is very important is the data interpretation and utilization of data as policy tool. Several states, for example, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, several states have now started putting data for policy making type programs, which includes the formation of real-time governance, formation of dashboards, and so forth. But I think we have a long way to go in that. And also, I think if you look at the current budget, some of the newer things, such as the national program on artificial intelligence, perhaps could be an interesting step in new technologies coming into not just data collection, but also data management and using them as policy tools.
Absolutely. Purvi, one final question before I let you go. And this really is about, agriculture as a sector. While, of course, we do understand there are enough and more longer term and shorter term schemes here, but implementation really is a big question mark. And, most people now tend to believe that agriculture isn't so viable. The younger generation is not coming to farming. They do not want to keep looking at farm loan waivers all the time. So is it becoming risky because insurance is not enough to cover risk, etc.? So there are a lot of issues.
I think perhaps the lack of interest in agriculture is not the question just of agriculture, or not just a productivity or production question. It is more of a factor of market. If there is, I think we have often seen agriculture only from a production and productivity angle, and have often missed out the whole profitability angle. So as long as as agriculture sector can have the profitability angle to it, we will get people to be more interested in that. Farmers are not looking at really dependence on mailbox or subsidies. They are looking at more of a market strengthening, and therefore I think bringing in that business perspective and going beyond looking at agriculture as a welfare sector is going to be very, very useful.
All right, Purvi, thank you very much. Insightful. Appreciate you joining in. Manisha, thanks very much for taking us through that conversation. Well, the market's down 3 points and I think been told to take another quick break. So let's do that. There isn't very much which is sort of moved in the last 10 minutes or so. We're right there, absolutely flat. Take a break. We are back with a quick check on markets with Ashwini, but we'll also speak with Ajmera Realty on the third quarter numbers that they reported coming right up. Back in 2.